Have you ever felt that your mind never stops thinking about others, replaying conversations, or worrying about what people think? Buddhism teaches that most of our suffering is not created by the outside world but inside our own minds. In this video, we'll explore how to let go of the endless cycle of thoughts, discover the power of detachment, and learn how mindfulness can free us from mental noise. Stay with us, because the path to peace begins when you stop thinking too much about anyone. Don't think too much about anyone. We often live trapped in our own heads, giving more space to others than to ourselves. How many times have you gone to bed thinking about what someone said to you, what they might be thinking, or what impression you left? Hours pass, sometimes days, and the same thought returns again and again. It feels like a record stuck in an endless loop. Buddhism invites us to look at this very human habit with fresh eyes. One of its core teachings is that suffering does not primarily come from the world outside us, but from the way we hold on to our thoughts and interpretations. We cannot stop people from acting, speaking, or having their own opinions, but we can learn how not to let those opinions dominate our inner space. When the Buddha spoke about the origin of suffering, he referred to attachment and craving, the constant desire for things to be a certain way. But there is another subtle form of attachment, the one we create with our thoughts about others. Instead of simply experiencing an interaction and letting it go, we carry it inside our minds like a heavy bag. This is why the phrase "don't think too much about anyone" has such a liberating power. It doesn't mean we should stop caring about people or become cold. It means we should not allow the weight of endless thoughts about them to steal our peace. Think for a moment. How much energy have you lost replaying what someone might be thinking of you? How much time have you wasted imagining scenarios that never happened? This is not just imagination, it's self-imprisonment. Buddhism gives us a mirror to see that the suffering in these moments is not caused by the person we are thinking about, but by our own attachment to the thought. Imagine sitting by a river. Leaves float past on the water, carried by the current. Your thoughts are like those leaves. You can watch them, let them pass, and keep your calm. But what we usually do is grab one leaf, hold it tightly, and refuse to let it go. Soon that leaf becomes a burden, and we forget there is a whole river flowing freely. Thinking too much about others is like clinging to the leaf. It doesn't make the river stop, but it does make us suffer unnecessarily. This teaching also connects with the practice of compassion. In Buddhism, compassion is not about overthinking someone else's life, trying to fix them in our minds, or worrying endlessly. Compassion means offering understanding and kindness, but from a space of clarity, not from mental entanglement. When we think too much about someone, we lose this clarity because our own projections and fears cover the truth. There is also a deep wisdom here about self-respect. To stop thinking too much about others is to give yourself permission to reclaim your mental energy. Imagine how different your days would be if, instead of turning your attention outward, you directed that same energy toward cultivating peace, creativity, or inner silence. The mind is powerful, but when it becomes obsessed, it becomes our worst enemy. The Buddha often compared the mind to a wild monkey, jumping from branch to branch without rest. Overthinking about others is exactly that. The restless monkey moving from one memory to another, one worry to another. The first step to calming the monkey is noticing that it's restless. That awareness alone opens the door to freedom. So when we hear the phrase "don't think too much about anyone," we can see it as an invitation to turn inward. It is not about ignoring people, but about recognizing that peace does not depend on controlling them or understanding every detail about them. Peace arises when we stop giving them more mental space than they deserve. At its heart, this message is a reminder that the mind is where battles are won or lost. Buddhism teaches us to look at our thoughts not as absolute truths but as passing phenomena. The more we understand this, the less we suffer. Thoughts about others will come, but we can choose not to feed them. We can choose to let the leaves float down the river. In this way, Buddhism does not tell us to isolate ourselves from people. It tells us to free ourselves from the prison of thoughts that make us forget who we are. Because when your mind is free, you can relate to others with more authenticity, more kindness and more love, but without being a prisoner of endless thinking. The weight of thoughts. Thoughts are invisible, intangible, and yet they often feel heavier than any physical burden we carry. You can lift a stone, carry it for a few steps, and then put it down. But a thought, once it takes root in your mind, can stay with you for hours, days, even years. And unlike a stone which you can clearly see and feel, the weight of a thought is subtle, almost invisible. That is why we so often underestimate its impact. Buddhism teaches that thoughts are like clouds passing through the sky. They appear, take shape, and then dissolve. But most of us don't allow them to dissolve naturally. Instead, we hold on to them, replaying them over and over, as if by repeating them, we could somehow change the past or secure the future. This clinging is what turns a passing thought into a heavy chain. Consider a simple example. Someone makes a comment about you at work or in your family. It may have been careless or even unintentional, but if your mind grabs onto it, the thought of that comment can weigh on you for days. You begin to wonder why they said it, what they really meant, what others think about it, and whether it will affect your image. One small event multiplies into dozens of thoughts, each one adding weight to your inner load. This is why Buddhism places so much importance on the mind. It tells us that our suffering is not so much in events themselves, but in the stories we weave around those events. The Buddha compared the mind under the grip of negative thoughts to a man shot by 2 arrows. The first arrow is the actual event. Someone says something hurtful, or something doesn't go your way. The second arrow is all the thinking, worrying and replaying that follows. The first arrow causes pain, but the second arrow multiplies it and makes the wound far worse. The weight of thoughts can also affect the body. Science today confirms what Buddhism has been saying for centuries. Excessive thinking and worrying produce stress, tension, and even illness. Have you ever noticed your shoulders tightening or your stomach clenching when you cannot stop thinking about something? The body is telling us that the mind's burden is too heavy. But what makes this burden tricky is that it often disguises itself as necessary. We tell ourselves we need to think things through, we need to replay the situation, we need to prepare for every possible outcome. Of course, reflection has its place. Planning and problem solving are useful. But beyond a certain point, thought turns into rumination. And rumination is like carrying a bag of stones that gets heavier with every step. Buddhism suggests a radical but simple alternative. Observe the thought, recognize it, and let it go. This doesn't mean ignoring your problems or denying reality. It means refusing to carry the extra weight that comes from unnecessary repetition. The thought may arise, but you do not need to feed it. You can let it float like a cloud instead of tying it down with ropes. One way to understand this is by looking at how memory works. A memory itself is neutral. It's just an imprint of something that happened. But when we recall it and start adding judgments, fears, and assumptions, we transform it into a heavy burden. The same memory can either be a passing image or a source of endless suffering, depending on how much weight we choose to give it. There's also something very liberating in realizing that most thoughts are not as important as we believe. Studies show that the majority of our daily thoughts are repetitive, often the same as the day before, and yet we treat them as urgent, as if each one deserved our full attention. Buddhism reminds us, just because a thought appears doesn't mean it is true, and it doesn't mean it deserves to control us. Think of your mind as a room. Every thought is like a visitor who knocks on the door. You can choose to invite some in, share tea, and listen carefully. But if you open the door to every single visitor, your house will soon be overcrowded, noisy, and chaotic. The practice is about learning discernment. Which thoughts are worth your attention and which ones should be allowed to pass by? The weight of thoughts also ties into our sense of identity. Many of us unconsciously define ourselves by what we think. If a thought tells us we are not good enough or that someone doesn't respect us, we may accept it as reality. But Buddhism challenges this directly. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness behind them. Once you begin to see this difference, the weight of thoughts naturally lightens because you no longer mistake them for the truth of who you are. Let's pause here with a practical reflection. The next time you notice yourself lost in thought, ask, is this thought helping me, or is it adding weight to my mind? If it is useful, keep it. If it is heavy and repetitive, let it go. The freedom lies not in controlling which thoughts appear, because they will always come, but in choosing which ones you carry with you. In the end, Buddhism's invitation is simple but profound. Stop carrying the unnecessary weight of thoughts. Life is challenging enough with the first arrow. We don't need to wound ourselves with the second. When you let go of the heavy bag of repetitive thinking, you rediscover a sense of lightness. You walk through life not weighed down by yesterday's worries or tomorrow's fears, but with the freshness of the present moment. The trap of overthinking about others. One of the most common ways we lose our inner peace is by giving too much space in our minds to other people. We replay what they said. We analyze their expressions. We imagine what they might think of us. Sometimes we even try to predict their reactions before they happen. All of this is the trap of overthinking about others. And it's a trap that steals not only our time, but also our freedom. The problem is not caring about others. Compassion and connection are essential to human life. The problem is when caring turns into obsession, when thoughts about others take up more room in our minds than our own presence does. Think about how often you've had a quiet moment alone, only to fill it with endless analysis of someone else's behavior. That moment could have been peace, but instead it became worry. Buddhism points out that one of the greatest illusions we fall into is believing that by thinking more about others, we will somehow control or understand them better. But the truth is, we cannot control what others feel or do. Their actions are guided by their own history, fears, and desires, many of which we will never fully see. To think excessively about them is like trying to stop the wind with your hands. It's effort without result. There is also a hidden danger in this trap. When we overthink about others, we often create stories that are not true. A person doesn't answer your message, and suddenly your mind creates a narrative. They are upset. They don't respect you. They are ignoring you. Hours or days later, you discover they were simply busy. In that time, you suffered for something that never existed outside your mind. This is the prison of projection, and it is built thought by thought. Another layer of this trap is comparison. When we think too much about others, we often measure ourselves against them. We look at their successes, their possessions, their appearance, and we let those comparisons define our value. Buddhism teaches that comparison is another form of craving, because it makes our happiness dependent on something external. Instead of living our own path, we become prisoners of someone else's shadow. But why do we fall into this trap so easily? One reason is habit. The mind is conditioned to seek problems and analyze situations. Evolution shaped us to scan our environment for threats, and in today's world, that instinct often turns toward other people's opinions. Another reason is insecurity. When we are not grounded in our own worth, we look to others to validate us. Their silence or disapproval then becomes unbearable, and our thoughts spiral endlessly. Buddhism offers an antidote to this cycle: awareness and detachment. Awareness means noticing when the mind starts spinning stories about others. Detachment means remembering that those stories are not the truth. They are just clouds passing through the sky of your mind. You don't have to chase them. You can simply let them drift. A powerful image comes from the Buddhist idea of the mirror. Your mind is like a mirror. It can reflect reality clearly. But if it is covered with dust, the reflection is distorted. Overthinking about others is like letting dust accumulate on the mirror. You see not the person as they are, but the image distorted by your fears and assumptions. Cleaning the mirror means calming the thoughts and seeing reality as it is, without adding unnecessary stories. Consider this practical example. Imagine someone doesn't greet you when they walk by. If your mind is trapped, you might think, "They are angry with me. I must have done something wrong." That thought grows heavy, and soon you feel anxious, but if you pause, you can see another possibility. Maybe they were distracted. Maybe they didn't see you. Maybe it had nothing to do with you at all. The difference between suffering and peace lies not in the event itself, but in the story your mind tells. When you stop overthinking about others, something beautiful happens. You begin to relate to them more authentically. Instead of approaching them with fear, suspicion, or projection, you approach them with openness. You listen more deeply, because your mind is not busy rehearsing or defending. You give them space to be who they are, instead of forcing them into the cage of your thoughts. There is also great freedom in remembering that people's opinions are temporary. What someone thinks of you today may change tomorrow. To make those shifting opinions the center of your inner world is to build your peace on sand. Buddhism reminds us, true peace comes from within, from a mind that knows how to let go, not from the unstable ground of others' judgments. The trap of overthinking about others often feels inescapable, but in reality, the key is already in your hand. That key is awareness. The moment you notice yourself lost in stories about someone else, you can gently say to yourself, "This is just a thought." That small recognition weakens the chain. Over time, with practice, the trap loses its power and your mind becomes lighter. So the next time you find yourself replaying a conversation or worrying about what someone might think, remember, you are free to step out of the trap. Their life is theirs, and your peace is yours. By releasing the endless cycle of overthinking about others, you make space for silence, presence, and true connection. And in that space, peace naturally arises. What Buddhism teaches about the restless mind. The human mind is restless by nature. It jumps from one thought to another, never staying still, always chasing something. Buddhism has long described this restless state with a vivid image: the monkey mind. Just as a monkey leaps from branch to branch without pause, our thoughts leap from worry to memory, from desire to fear, never allowing us to rest in the present. If you close your eyes for just a moment, you can see this clearly. Try to remain silent and still for even 1 minute and watch what happens. Thoughts arrive without invitation, reminders of unfinished tasks, replayed conversations, plans for the future. They crowd the space of your awareness, pulling you away from stillness. This is the restless mind at work, and it is universal. Buddhism doesn't condemn the restless mind, instead it studies it. It asks, why does the mind behave this way and what can we do about it? The first insight is that restlessness is fueled by craving and aversion, wanting things to be different than they are. When we crave, the mind races toward what it doesn't have. When we resist, the mind pushes away what it doesn't want. In both cases, the mind is unsettled, never content with the present moment. Another key teaching is that restlessness is a form of suffering. At first, it may not seem like suffering. It feels like ordinary thinking, like the normal chatter of daily life. But underneath, restlessness drains our energy, weakens our attention, and prevents us from feeling peace. The Buddha compared the restless mind to a pot of water shaken by the wind. The surface ripples constantly, and because of that, it cannot reflect the moon clearly. In the same way, a restless mind cannot reflect truth or wisdom. This is why meditation holds such an important place in Buddhism. Meditation is not about forcing the mind to be empty. It is about training the mind to see its restlessness without feeding it. Each time you notice the mind wandering and gently bring it back, you weaken the habit of restlessness. Slowly, the water becomes still and clarity arises naturally, but restlessness doesn't appear only in formal meditation. It follows us everywhere, in conversations, in work, even in rest. You may sit down to enjoy a meal, but your mind is already at tomorrow's meeting. You may walk in a park, but your thoughts are busy with yesterday's argument. The body is here, but the mind is elsewhere. This is the essence of restlessness, never being fully where you are. Buddhism teaches that the way to heal this is through mindfulness. Mindfulness means anchoring your attention to the present, to what is happening right now. If you are eating, you notice the taste, the texture, the simple act of chewing. If you are walking, you feel the ground under your feet and the rhythm of your steps. These small acts of awareness calm the restless mind, not by force, but by giving it a place to rest. Another important teaching is that restlessness is often linked to identity. We are restless because we are always trying to become someone else, more successful, more admired, more secure. This endless striving pulls the mind out of the present and into a future that never arrives. Buddhism suggests a different approach. Instead of chasing an image of who you think you should be, learn to be fully present with who you are right now. It is also worth noting that the restless mind is not an enemy. It is simply a mind without training. Just as an untrained horse runs wildly, a restless mind jumps uncontrollably. But with patient guidance, the horse learns to walk steadily, and the mind learns to rest. This is the essence of Buddhist practice, to transform restlessness into calm through awareness, compassion, and discipline. Science today supports what Buddhism has taught for centuries. Studies on meditation show that regular practice reduces activity in the parts of the brain responsible for rumination and worry. The restless mind becomes quieter, and people experience greater peace and clarity. What the Buddha observed through direct experience, modern research now confirms. The restless mind can feel overwhelming, but Buddhism reminds us that change is possible. Each moment you notice your wandering thoughts and return to the present, you are planting seeds of peace. Over time, those seeds grow into a mind that no longer controls you, but serves you. So what does Buddhism ultimately teach us about the restless mind? That it is natural, but it is not final. The mind will always produce thoughts, but you are not bound to chase them. You can learn to see them arise and let them pass, like waves on the ocean. Beneath the waves, the ocean is vast and still. Beneath the restlessness of your thoughts, there is a deeper awareness waiting to be discovered. And when you touch that deeper awareness, even for a few moments, you realize that peace is not something to be found in the outside world. It is already here, beneath the noise of the restless mind. The task is simply to return again and again until rest becomes your natural state. The principle of detachment, releasing the mental burden. If there is one teaching in Buddhism that speaks directly to the problem of overthinking, it is the principle of detachment. At first, the word detachment can sound cold, as if it meant not caring about anything or anyone. But in Buddhism, detachment does not mean indifference. It means freedom. It is the ability to relate to people, to situations, and to your own thoughts without becoming a prisoner of them. Imagine carrying a backpack filled with heavy stones. Each stone represents a thought, a worry, or a memory you refuse to let go of. You can still walk, but every step is harder, slower, and more painful. Detachment is like opening the backpack and putting down the stones. The path remains the same, but now you walk lightly, freely, without unnecessary weight. One of the Buddha's central teachings is the idea of non-attachment. He observed that suffering arises when we cling to things, not only to material possessions, but also to people, identities, and even ideas. We want things to last forever. We want people to act the way we expect, and we want our thoughts to confirm our sense of self. But reality is constantly changing. When we cling to what is fleeting, we suffer. Detachment is the art of letting reality flow without holding it too tightly. Applied to the mind, this means we don't need to attach ourselves to every thought that appears. Thoughts will always come and go, like clouds drifting across the sky. Detachment allows us to observe them without grabbing onto them. It's like watching a bird fly across your field of vision. You see it, you acknowledge it, but you don't run after it. Detachment also helps us in our relationships with others. Overthinking often happens because we are too attached to how people see us, to their approval, or to their actions. We cling to their words, their gestures, their silences, but detachment reminds us that their behavior belongs to them, not to us. We cannot control their minds, and we should not chain our peace to their moods. By practicing detachment, we can still love deeply but with freedom, without suffocating ourselves or others. A common misunderstanding is to confuse detachment with coldness. But Buddhism makes a clear distinction. Coldness rejects, while detachment accepts. To be detached is not to turn your back on life, but to embrace it as it is without demanding that it be different. It is to say, I care, but I do not cling. I love, but I do not possess. This balance allows relationships to be healthier and more authentic. There is also a connection between detachment and impermanence. Buddhism constantly reminds us that everything changes. Every situation, every feeling, every thought is temporary. When we understand this deeply, clinging begins to lose its appeal. Why grasp so tightly at something that cannot stay? Detachment is simply aligning ourselves with reality. Everything flows, and peace comes when we learn to flow with it. On a practical level, how do we cultivate detachment? One method is mindfulness. Each time a thought about someone or something arises, notice it without judgment. Recognize it as a thought, not as a fact. Then gently let it pass. This simple act of noticing and releasing weakens the habit of clinging. Another method is reflection. Ask yourself, is this thought helping me, or is it weighing me down? If it is only a burden, put down the stone. Detachment also requires trust. Trust in life, trust in the present moment, trust that we do not need to control everything. Much of our overthinking is an attempt to secure certainty. We replay scenarios because we are afraid of the unknown. But Buddhism teaches that life itself is uncertain, and fighting this truth only multiplies suffering. Detachment is the courage to stand in uncertainty without being crushed by it. There is a story in the Buddhist tradition of two monks crossing a river. One carries a woman on his back to help her across. Hours later, the other monk, troubled, says, "Why did you carry her? We are monks. We should not touch women." The first monk replies, "I put her down hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" This story beautifully illustrates detachment. The physical act lasted only minutes, but the thought weighed heavily because one of the monks refused to release it. We often do the same, carrying in our minds what has long since ended. When you practice detachment, you begin to see life differently. Problems don't disappear, but they no longer control you. Relationships don't vanish, but they become lighter, freer. Thoughts don't stop arising, but they lose their grip. This is the power of detachment, not the absence of connection, but the presence of freedom. In the end, the principle of detachment is not about escaping life, but about engaging with it fully, without chains. It is about walking through life with open hands instead of clenched fists. When you loosen your grip, you discover that peace is not something to chase, but something that appears naturally once the burden is released. Mindfulness, the art of observing without judging. At the heart of Buddhism lies a simple yet transformative practice: mindfulness. The word itself means paying attention to the present moment, but it carries a deeper essence. Mindfulness is not just noticing what is happening, but noticing without judgment, without labeling, without turning an experience into a story of good or bad. It is the art of being here, fully awake, without adding unnecessary noise. In our daily lives, most of us live in automatic mode. We eat without tasting, walk without noticing, listen without truly hearing. Our minds are not with us but wandering somewhere else, in the past, replaying what happened, or in the future, imagining what might happen. This wandering creates stress, anxiety, and restlessness. Mindfulness is the antidote. It brings us back to the only place where life truly exists, the present moment. Think of a glass of muddy water. If you keep shaking it, the water stays cloudy. But if you let it rest, the mud settles and the water becomes clear. The mind works the same way. When we are restless, lost in thoughts and judgments, our perception is muddy. Mindfulness is the act of letting the mind rest, allowing clarity to emerge naturally. Observing without judging is a key part of this practice. Usually when a thought or emotion arises, we label it. This is good. This is bad. I like this. I hate that. These judgments add extra layers of suffering. For example, if anger arises, we don't just feel anger. We also feel guilty for being angry, or we justify it, or we replay the reasons endlessly. With mindfulness, we simply notice. Anger is here, nothing more. By observing without judgment, the emotion passes more easily because we are no longer feeding it with stories. This same approach applies to thoughts about others. Suppose someone says something that hurts you. Instead of replaying it for hours, mindfulness allows you to pause and notice the thought as it appears. A memory of their words is here. You don't have to analyze or fight it. You simply observe. The act of observing creates space between you and the thought. That space is freedom. Buddhism often describes mindfulness as the practice of being the witness. Imagine sitting at the side of a road watching cars go by. Each car is a thought or emotion. Some are noisy, some are fast, some are slow. Normally we run into the road, chase after cars, or get hit by them, but mindfulness teaches us to sit calmly and watch them pass. We don't need to stop the cars, we only need to stop running into traffic. Mindfulness also changes how we relate to pain. Pain is inevitable in life, sickness, loss, disappointment, but much of our suffering comes from resistance. We add mental commentary, this shouldn't be happening. Why me? These judgments turn pain into suffering. When we practice mindfulness, we learn to face pain directly, without adding the weight of resistance. Strangely, when we stop fighting pain, it often becomes more bearable. In daily life, mindfulness can be practiced in very simple ways. When you drink water, feel the coolness in your mouth. When you breathe, notice the air entering and leaving your body. When you speak with someone, give them your full attention instead of planning what to say next. These small acts of presence build the habit of observing without judgment. Over time, they transform the restless mind into a calm one. Another aspect of mindfulness is compassion. Observing without judging does not only apply to thoughts and emotions, it also applies to yourself. Too often, we judge ourselves harshly, criticizing every mistake, every imperfection. But mindfulness teaches us to meet ourselves with kindness, to notice when we fall short without punishing ourselves, to see our humanity clearly without adding cruelty. This compassionate awareness is one of the most healing aspects of mindfulness. Science has shown the power of this practice as well. Studies reveal that mindfulness reduces anxiety, improves focus, and even changes the structure of the brain, strengthening areas related to calm and emotional balance. What ancient Buddhist teachers discovered through experience, modern research now confirms. Mindfulness is not just a philosophy, it is a practical tool for transforming the mind. In the end, mindfulness is about freedom. Freedom from being controlled by thoughts, freedom from being trapped in endless judgments, freedom from the constant pull of past and future. By observing without judging, you return to the simplicity of the present moment, where life is fresh and alive. So, the next time you find yourself lost in thought, try this simple experiment. Pause, breathe, and notice. Don't judge the thought, don't push it away, don't cling to it. Just see it for what it is, a passing cloud in the vast sky of your awareness. And remember, you are not the cloud, you are the sky. How to apply this teaching in your daily life? All of these Buddhist teachings, detachment, mindfulness, freedom from the restless mind, are beautiful in theory, but their true value only appears when we live them in daily life. Otherwise, they remain just words. Buddhism is practical at its core. It is not about abstract philosophy, but about tools for ending suffering here and now. So how can we apply these lessons when the challenges of everyday life arise? The first step is awareness. Before we can let go of unnecessary thoughts about others, we need to notice them. Start by paying attention to the moments when your mind becomes heavy. Maybe you are walking home and suddenly you're replaying a conversation with your boss. Maybe you're about to sleep and your mind is busy imagining what a friend might think of you. These are the moments to pause and simply acknowledge, I am caught in thinking. That recognition is already the beginning of freedom. The second step is creating space. Once you notice the thought, give yourself permission not to engage with it. Imagine holding a hot coal. The moment you realize it is burning you, you drop it. In the same way, when you realize a thought is causing unnecessary suffering, you can release it. You don't need to solve it, finish it, or analyze it. You can just let it go like dropping a stone into a river. One practical method is conscious breathing. Whenever you notice your mind caught in overthinking, return to your breath. Inhale slowly, exhale slowly, and feel the rhythm of life in your body. The breath is always in the present moment. By focusing on it, you anchor yourself here and now instead of drowning in stories about the past or future. Another way to apply this teaching is through mindful pauses. In modern life, we often move quickly from one task to another without stopping. Try creating small islands of mindfulness throughout the day. Before sending an email, pause and take one breath. Before answering a call, pause and notice how you feel. Before eating, pause and give thanks for the food. These pauses create small but powerful moments of awareness that weaken the habit of restlessness. In relationships, the application is just as important. When someone says something that bothers you, instead of reacting immediately, pause, notice the emotions rising inside you, observe them without judgment. You may feel hurt, angry, or anxious, but by witnessing the feeling instead of acting on it blindly, you prevent the cycle of overthinking from taking over. In that space of awareness, you can respond more wisely. Another daily practice is reflection on impermanence. Remind yourself regularly that everything changes, your thoughts, your moods, your circumstances. This reflection makes it easier to let go of obsessive thinking because you see clearly that nothing is permanent. A worry that feels overwhelming today may vanish tomorrow. By remembering impermanence, you weaken the grip of your thoughts. Technology also plays a role in our mental restlessness. Our phones, notifications, and constant messages often fuel overthinking about others. One way to apply Buddhist wisdom is to set boundaries with technology. Take moments away from your phone, especially before sleep. Create spaces of silence where your mind can rest. These simple choices protect your peace. Another practice is gratitude. When the mind is caught in endless analysis, it often focuses on what is missing or what is wrong. Gratitude shifts the focus to what is already here. At the end of the day, take a few moments to recall 3 things you are thankful for. They don't need to be big. Even the taste of a meal, the smile of a stranger, or the quiet of the evening. Gratitude grounds you in the present and softens the restless mind. For those who want a more structured practice, meditation is the most direct way to apply these teachings. You don't need hours each day. Even 5 or 10 minutes of sitting quietly, focusing on your breath, and watching your thoughts pass can bring enormous change. Over time, you develop the ability to remain calm, not only in meditation, but in the middle of daily challenges. It is also helpful to practice self-compassion. When you notice yourself overthinking again, don't criticize yourself. Don't say, "Why can't I stop?" That judgment only creates more suffering. Instead, gently acknowledge, "This is the nature of the mind. I am learning to let go." Treat yourself with the same patience you would offer to a child learning to walk. Each step, each small moment of awareness is progress. Finally, remember that applying these teachings is not about perfection. The mind will wander, thoughts will return. That is natural. What matters is not eliminating thoughts, but changing your relationship with them. With practice, you begin to live more lightly. You carry fewer stones, you spend less time trapped in others' opinions, and more time at peace within yourself. Applying Buddhist wisdom to daily life is not a sudden transformation, but a gradual unfolding. Day by day, thought by thought, you learn to live with more freedom. And little by little, you discover that the peace you were searching for has always been within you, waiting for you to release the weight of unnecessary thinking. The path to inner peace. When we explore Buddhist teachings about the restless mind, detachment, and mindfulness, all roads point toward the same destination: inner peace. But what does inner peace really mean? It is not the absence of problems or the end of difficulties. Life will always bring challenges, loss, and change. Inner peace is the ability to remain calm and balanced in the middle of all of this. It is the deep knowing that your well-being does not depend on outside circumstances, but on the state of your mind. Buddhism describes peace as a natural quality of the mind when it is free from attachment and delusion. Imagine a lake on a clear day. When the water is still, it reflects the sky perfectly. But when it is disturbed, the reflection becomes distorted. The mind works the same way. When it is restless, attached, and filled with endless thinking, it cannot see reality clearly. But when it becomes still, peace and clarity appear naturally, like the reflection in calm water. The path to inner peace is not about fighting the mind, but about understanding it. You cannot force peace by trying to stop your thoughts or control every situation. Peace comes when you stop clinging, when you let go of the unnecessary weight. The Buddha taught that suffering arises from craving, and peace arises from letting go. This is the essence of the path. One important step on this path is self-awareness. You cannot find peace if you don't know what is disturbing your mind. Begin by watching your patterns. Notice when your thoughts become obsessive, when your emotions spiral, when you give too much power to others' opinions. Awareness is the doorway to peace, because you cannot release what you do not see. The next step is acceptance. Much of our suffering comes not from what happens, but from our resistance to it. We want life to go a certain way, and when it doesn't, we struggle. Inner peace grows when we learn to accept reality as it is. This doesn't mean we stop working to improve things, but it means we stop fighting against the present moment. Acceptance is not weakness, it is strength, because it allows us to meet life with clarity instead of resistance. Another step is compassion. Peace is not just a private feeling, it is also how we relate to others. When we hold anger, resentment, or endless judgment, our inner world cannot be calm. Compassion softens these sharp edges. It doesn't mean tolerating harmful behavior, but it means choosing not to poison your own heart with hatred. Compassion clears the space for peace to take root. On this path, mindfulness is the practice that ties everything together. Each time you return to the present moment, each time you observe a thought without judgment, you take one more step toward peace. These small steps add up. Over time, mindfulness becomes not just something you practice, but the way you live. It transforms ordinary moments, walking, eating, listening, into gateways to peace. It is also essential to understand that inner peace is not something far away or reserved for monks in monasteries. It is available to you right now in the middle of your daily life. You don't need to escape your responsibilities or run away from the world. Peace is not found by changing your environment, but by changing your relationship with your mind. Even in the noise of the city, even in the chaos of work, you can find silence inside. The path to inner peace is gradual. There will be days when the mind feels restless, when old habits of overthinking return. That is natural. The key is persistence. Every time you bring your attention back to the present, every time you let go of unnecessary thoughts, every time you choose compassion instead of resentment, you are walking the path. Peace is not a sudden destination, but a journey of countless small choices. Ultimately, Buddhism reminds us that peace is your true nature. It is not something you need to create, it is something you uncover by removing the layers of restlessness and attachment. Like the sun hidden by clouds, peace is always shining behind the storms of the mind. Your task is not to make the sun appear, but to stop clinging to the clouds. When you live with this understanding, life becomes lighter. Problems remain, but they no longer dominate you. Thoughts arise, but they no longer control you. You can care for others without losing yourself in endless overthinking. You can walk through life with clarity, balance, and calm. This is the gift of the path, freedom from the prison of thoughts and the discovery of peace within. And so, the journey comes full circle. Don't think too much about anyone, because peace does not live in their opinions, in their judgments, or in their actions. Peace lives in your mind, waiting for you to return to it. The path to inner peace begins the moment you stop chasing and start resting in what has always been here, your own awareness. As we come to the end of this journey, remember, peace is not something far away. It's already within you. All it takes is learning to let go of unnecessary thoughts and return to the present moment. Now I'd love to hear from you. In the comments, write one phrase that reminds you to stay calm and not overthink. It could be as simple as "I let go" or "peace is here." Your words might inspire someone else who needs that reminder today. And if this message resonated with you, please share this video with a friend or family member who might be trapped in overthinking. Sometimes, a small teaching can change someone's entire perspective. Don't keep it to yourself. Spread the peace.